Secretary of State Madeleine Albright speaks during the news conference at the State Department in Washington October 12, 2000. Reuters. Brendan McDermott. President Barack Obama awards a 2012 Presidential Medal of Freedom to former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright during a ceremony in the East Room of the White House in Washington, May 29, 2012. Reuters. Kevin Lamarck. Former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright arrives on stage to speak at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, July 26, 2016. Reuters. Mike Seeger. North Korean leader Kim Jong-il toasts U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright at a dinner in Pyongyang, North Korea, October 24, 2000. Reuters. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright testifies before the House International Relations Committee on Capitol Hill April 21, 1999. Reuters. Win McNamee. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright walks away from the scene of the U.S. Embassy bombing in Dar es Salaam August 18, 1998. Reuters. George Mulala. Secretary-General Kofi Annan greets U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright before their meeting at the United Nations in New York on September 23, 1998. Reuters. Peter Morgan. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and Pope John Paul II during the private audience at the Vatican March 7, 1998. Reuters. American Secretary of State Madeleine Albright walks through a graveyard for over 1,000 people, mostly Tutsi, killed during the 1994 genocide with the mayor of Kigali, Rose Kubai. December 10, 1997. Reuters. Corin Dufka. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright is shown features of a young Vietnamese girl in the recovery ward of Odontostomatology Hospital for patients with cleft palates, or genetic deformity, by a doctor in Ho Chi Minh June 28, 1997. Reuters. Eriko Sugita. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright stands with South African President Nelson Mandela during the news briefing at his Malambanlovu residence in Pretoria December 13, 1997. Reuters. Peter Andrews. Former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright arrives on the red carpet for the annual White House Correspondents' Association dinner in Washington, April 30, 2016. Reuters. Jonathan Ernst. President Bill Clinton talks with National Security Advisor Sandy Berger and Secretary of State Madeleine Albright moments before delivering strong criticism of Yeltsin's handling of the situation in Chechnya during the opening session of the OSCE Summit November 18, 1999. Reuters. Kevin Lamarck. Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat talks to President Bill Clinton on the phone about the new peace deal while U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright stands by at Arafat's office in Gaza September 3, 1999. Reuters. Pool. Group of 8 G8 foreign ministers front row LR. Hubert Védrine of France, U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, Robin Cook of Great Britain second row LR. Umberto Ranieri, Foreign State Secretary of Italy, Lloyd Axworthy of Canada, Joschka Fischer of Germany, Masahiko Komura of Japan and Igor Ivanov of Russia gather for a group picture ahead to their working session at the G8 Foreign Ministers meeting in Cologne June 10, 1999. Reuters. Arne Wiegman. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shakes hands with Palestinian President Yasser Arafat as U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright looks on after the three met in New York late September 27, 1998. Reuters. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright faces 3 U.S. Marines after laying a wreath at the scene of the embassy bombing in Dar es Salaam August 18, 1998. Reuters. George Mulala. U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright talks with a U.S. officer at Petrovac Base, near Skopje, June 11, 1999. Reuters. Vice President Al Gore swears in Madeleine Albright as the new U.S. Secretary of State as President Bill Clinton watches during the White House ceremony, January 23, 1997. Albright's daughters Katie, Elle, and Ann hold the family Bible. Albright is the first ever woman U.S. Secretary of State. Reuters. Rick Wilking.